Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Books and Bytes. Today we're embarking on a really profound deep dive. We're looking at Marshal of Victory, the autobiography of General Georgy Zhukov. That's by the Marshal himself, Georgy Zhukov, with Jeffrey Roberts involved in the publication. Now, this isn't just some dry historical document. It's a genuine first-hand account from, arguably the most pivotal Soviet military figure of the whole 20th century. Our mission today really is to unpack the extraordinary life and the career of Georgy Zhukov. We want to extract the most important insights into his journey, and also look at the often brutal realities of Soviet military life and the, frankly, groundbreaking strategies that ultimately shaped the Eastern Front.
Yeah, and what's truly compelling about Zhukov's memoirs, I think, is how they really lay bare several core themes that are all kind of interconnected. You'll see his remarkable, almost improbable climb from, the most humble peasant origins right up to becoming this highly decorated marshal. We'll explore the omnipresent and often pretty challenging role of the Communist Party in military affairs. That's always there. Then there's the relentless, almost obsessive pace of military modernization. You see the Red Army change from, largely a cavalry force into this modern mechanized giant. And of course, the sheer, almost unimaginable scale and the immense human cost of World War II, specifically from the Soviet perspective. It's a really powerful narrative, personal and national transformation, all under extreme pressure.
So to really get a handle on the Marshal, we have to go right back. Back to the very beginning, his childhood in rural poverty. Born in 1896, his early life was marked by incredible hardship, almost Dickensian, you could say. He even recounts the tragic death of his infant brother Alexei. Just a basic lack of food. It's a stark reminder of the desperate conditions back then. He even describes the roof of their family home, this tiny hut literally caving in from age and neglect. It paints a really bleak picture of pre-revolutionary Russia. Crushing, almost.
Indeed, and that stark background, it's absolutely crucial for grasping the wider reality of pre-revolutionary Russia. Widespread poverty, hardship that wasn't the exception. It was the norm for millions. Yet, even in those grinding conditions, Zhukov's early resilience, his ambition, it's incredibly clear. At just 11, he gets apprenticed as a furrier in Moscow, and the conditions he describes are incredibly harsh. He talks about being routinely beaten by the master, the craftsman, the craftswoman, even the mistress. But what's really telling, I think, is that despite all this brutality, he relentlessly pursued self-education, attending night school whenever he possibly could. This early drive, this need to improve himself, to learn against all odds, it really foreshadows his later military career, doesn't it?
Yeah, that desire for self-improvement and his sort of innate discipline, it definitely seems to have set him apart. Then his life takes a dramatic turn. Conscription. August 1915, he's drafted into the Tsar's army, assigned to the cavalry. He describes the training as just dreary, mind-numbing monotony, days just blurring into one. And even letters home were censored, to stop any complaints or dissent getting back to families. Sounds like a grim existence, really designed to break your spirit.
It really was. And Zhukov's account of the Tsarist army is particularly insightful here. He paints this picture of a really poorly equipped force with astonishingly low general morale, widespread distrust, almost paranoid of the generals. There were even rumors flying around the ranks that some generals were traitors, bought off by the Germans. And what's fascinating is his observation about the huge lack of rapport between officers in the ranks, a deep class divide. That only started to erode, he says, as the war decimated the original officer corps and they were replaced by men from, more humble backgrounds. It was in this environment, this crucible, that Zhukov had his early political awakening. He recognized, and he put it this way, that none but the Bolsheviks could give the Russian people peace, land, and liberty. And that wasn't just, a political slogan for him. It felt like a deeply personal conviction, born directly from his experiences.
Right. And that conviction, it profoundly shaped his future. Led him straight to joining the Red Army October 1st, 1918. Then he became a candidate member of the Communist Party in March 1919. A really pivotal decision, obviously for his life, but also for the future of Russia itself.
What's fascinating here is the birth of the Red Army. It was chaotic, yes, but also incredibly decisive. And the Communist Party's role was absolutely central in organizing the country's defenses during that brutal civil war. They shifted pretty quickly from the early sort of revolutionary idea of elected commanders to appointed ones, stressing a new and often brutal iron revolutionary discipline. This was reinforced by installing military commissars who were legislatively entrenched, basically a political overseer alongside every military commander.
And ensure loyalty.
Exactly. Their main role was ensuring ideological conformity, loyalty, and providing political education within the ranks. So this wasn't just an army in the traditional sense. It was conceived as a new type of army, clearly class-motivated. And communists were meant to be the cementing force,
Yeah.
upholding strict discipline, demonstrating bravery, setting an example for everyone.
And Zhukov was right there, in the thick of it, experiencing incredibly intense early combat, fighting the White Armies, Denikin, Wrangel, later the Antonov bands. He served under big names like M.V. Friends, even with the renowned Chapayev Division, a legendary unit. These early brutal experiences must have been just incredibly formative for him, really honing his combat instincts.
Absolutely. The Civil War was a harsh school, unforgiving. It forced the Red Army to evolve rapidly, to build a military capable of defending this young Soviet state against, well, multiple threats, internal and external. This period was crucial for developing the foundations of what they'd later call Soviet military science. Every military action was infused with this clear ideological purpose. The emphasis on the political commissars, for instance, it meant party members were expected to be models of selfless service, bravery, often leading from the front. It established this principle that party organizations were deeply responsible for the military department's policy. Their influence extended into everything, all military matters, combat operations. Zhukov's early exposure to the system, political control intertwined with military action, it really became a hallmark of his entire career.
Right. Then after the Civil War, there's this massive demobilization. The Red Army shrinks dramatically from 5.5 million down to just 562,000 by late 1924. Now, that huge reduction, it might sound like a step back, but it definitely didn't mean military development just stopped. Instead, there was this simultaneous, really aggressive drive for professional military education. Zhukov himself was constantly learning, higher cavalry school, then the prestigious Frunze Military Academy in 1929. How did this whole transformation actually impact the Red Army's capabilities?
Well, this period saw really significant military reforms, crucial for the Red Army's future. One major change was introducing one-man command. That was a critical shift. It moved them away from that earlier dual control system where the political commissars had effectively equal authority with military commanders.
Streamlining things.
Exactly. Streamlined authority, decision-making, vital for quicker battlefield responses, more efficient command. And there was also a really strong focus on strengthening specialized technical units, machine guns, artillery, armor, aviation. Now, Zhukov admits the Red Army was still poorly equipped in the 1920s, but the party's push for industrialization, the five-year plans, that was absolutely crucial for equipping the army for what was coming. The output of tanks, planes, heavy artillery. It was almost non-existent right after the Civil War, but it started to grow steadily, laying the groundwork for a truly modern force.
And despite those initial shortcomings, Zhukov's own rise was remarkably steady, commanding the 39th Buzaluk Cavalry Regiment in 23, then the 2nd Cavalry Brigade in 1930. He shares some great anecdotes from this time, like visits from legendary commanders Semyon Budny, A.I. Yegorov, and they apparently stressed the critical importance of operational knowledge for future wars. It sounds like they really had a strong sense that something big was on the horizon. What do they mean by operational knowledge back then?
Oh, they certainly did. There was this palpable growing awareness across the Soviet military leadership, a potential big war against the USSR, especially as Germany was building this powerful invasion army. So when commanders like Budny and Yegorov talked about operational knowledge, they meant more than just tactics, how small units fight or grand strategy, the overall war effort. Operational knowledge was about the art of conducting large-scale campaigns involving multiple armies across vast fronts, coordinating forces, logistics, movements to achieve strategic goals. And this context highlights a key ideological point Zhukov makes again and again in his memoirs. While B.M. Shaposhnikov wrote this fundamental work, Brain of the Army, analyzing the General Staff's role, Zhukov, with total conviction, asserts that the party's Central Committee was the true brain of the Red Army. He states flat out, no major military question was ever tackled without it. It just reflects that deep, almost inseparable ideological integration of the military within the Soviet system.
That deep ideological integration combined with his burgeoning operational knowledge, that was put to its first real test in 1939. The conflict with Japan at Khalkhin Gol on the Mongolian border. This was Zhukov's crucial proving ground, wasn't it? He apparently assessed the situation very quickly, decisively used tanks like that 11th Tank Brigade with its 150 tanks, and employed extensive strategic deception, tapping enemy wires, false radio reports, even moving troops at civilian clothes to hide what he was doing. How significant was this victory?
Oh, hugely significant. This victory against the Japanese, who, by the way, had grossly underestimated Soviet technical capabilities and tactical skill, It proved to be a vital school of combat for Zhukov. It wasn't just some local skirmish. It was a complex operation that really showcased the devastating effectiveness of combining armor, those 150 tanks, with synchronized air and artillery support. Zhukov's tactics here, especially his use of deep encirclement and surprise, they were frankly ahead of many contemporary military doctrines. The Japanese suffered staggering casualties, over 50,000 dead or wounded. It just reflected the overwhelming superiority Zhukov managed to achieve. His methods led to the rapid defeat of the Japanese invasion force, brought immense honor to Soviet arms, and, crucially, it essentially deterred further Japanese aggression against the USSR right before the big conflict with Germany. It was a direct, practical lesson for Zhukov in large-scale, combined arms offensive operations.
And this undeniable success, it led directly to his, unexpected appointment as Chief of General Staff, February 1941. Just months before the German invasion, Zhukov admits he initially resisted, said he lacked staff experience, preferred command roles out in the field, but he kept it because of Stalin's special emphasis. Quote, that must have been an incredibly daunting task, especially given what was just around the corner.
It was an absolutely critical appointment. In Zhukov's memoirs, they reveal the significant, almost catastrophic issues facing the general staff right on the eve of WWII. He highlights desperately poor road networks in the western regions. That would severely hamper troop movements, obviously. Significant shortages of modern aircraft. He says 75–80% of Soviet planes were inferior to the German counterparts. And a critical lack of anti-aircraft weapons, leaving the Red Army really vulnerable from the air. Mobilization supplies were also woefully insufficient. And crucially, Zhukov details Stalin's profound miscalculation about the main direction of the German attack. He believed it would target Ukraine, the Donetsk coal basin. On top of that, Stalin deeply distrusted Western intelligence about the imminent invasion, dismissed it all as provocation. So this combination, material shortcomings and strategic misjudgment, it meant the Red Army was tragically unprepared for the scale and the direction of the attack when it finally came.
And it came with just an absolutely shattering shock. June 22, 1941. The German invasion brought initial chaos, widespread communication breakdowns, severe losses for the Red Army. Zhukov recounts a directive issued just hours before the attack, warning of a possible German offensive. But by then, it was just too late to effectively organize a defense.
Yeah, the initial days were a nightmare, a staggering blow. But Zhukov also underscores the immediate, almost instinctive response of the Communist Party and the Council of People's Commissars, rallying the entire nation. They immediately framed it as the Great Patriotic War, invoking this powerful sense of national unity against a common enemy. And there were rapid, decisive organizational changes, too, like the temporary abolition of the corps system to streamline command, and the formation of the State Defense Committee, headed by Stalin himself, which centralized everything military, economic, political agencies. Now, this centralization of power, while absolute, was arguably crucial for mobilizing the entire country for this unified, desperate war effort. It was a nation fighting for its very survival.
And in this desperate early period, Zhukov's role was absolutely critical. Supreme Command representative personally flying to these desperate, collapsing fronts like Leningrad. He describes his interactions with Stalin as, direct, often curt, and how he gained increasing confidence in voicing his strategic opinions, even when they contradicted Stalin's own views. That sounds like an incredibly high-stakes, perilous relationship for him.
It absolutely was. A constant dance on a razor's edge, you might say. He became Stalin's go-to problem solver, often dispatched to the most critical sectors. Take the Battle of Smolensk, summer of '41. Soviet defense operations there, though unbelievably costly, they managed to prevent a swift German breakthrough towards Moscow. But crucial time. The Yelnya salient, too. Zhukov organized a limited but successful offensive there to eliminate a German salient, an early, albeit small, glimmer of hope, then Leningrad. Blockaded September 8, 1941. Zhukov gets sent there. He immediately takes these drastic measures to strengthen defenses, activating new divisions, people's volunteers, seamen, leading to what he described as unexampled courage and mass heroism from the city's defenders. This reflected, I think, the immense moral and political unity the Soviet system managed to forge, even facing such overwhelming odds.
The war's undeniable turning point, though, came with that pivotal Stalingrad counteroffensive. Operation Uranus, November 1942. Zhukov, along with Alexander Vasilevsky, meticulously planned this, enforcing strict secrecy around troop movements, using cunning, deceptive radio reports. This was a truly game-changing moment.
Oh, Operation Uranus was a masterpiece of operational art. It achieved its objective brilliantly, destroying the Hungarian, Italian, and Romanian armies that were defending the German flanks, thereby encircling a staggering 300,000 German troops in the city itself. Stalingrad truly served, as Zhukov put it, a great and testing school of victory for the Red Army. It taught commanders how to organize complex combined arms operations, effectively coordinating infantry, artillery, tanks, air support, and crucially how to integrate defense with massive offensive maneuvers. This level of synchronized, large-scale operation, very few armies at that time had really mastered it. It marked a significant shift in Soviet military capability, proved they could not only hold the line but decisively reverse the tide.
Right. And following Stalingrad came the Battle of Kursk, July 1943, often called the largest tank battle in history. Zhukov's strategy here, as I understand it, was to fight a premeditated, deep defensive battle, wear the enemy down, exhaust them before launching a massive counteroffensive, essentially setting a trap.
And it was a trap that worked brilliantly. The decisive factor in the Soviet victory at Kursk, well, it was their overwhelming superiority. Not just in numbers, though they had those too, but crucially in the quality of troops and equipment that the Soviet industrial base had started to, well, churn out. The sheer industrial output of the Soviet rear was phenomenal. Over 825,000 guns and mortars, nearly 103,000 tanks and self-propelled guns, over 134,000 military aircraft produced just between 41 and 45.
Incredible numbers.
Just unprecedented production. And this enabled the creation of new tank armies, these large, self-contained armored formations that could operate independently deep behind enemy lines, and powerful artillery formations too. This cemented the Red Army's incontestable superiority over the Wehrmacht. Kursk proved the strength, the vitality of the socialist country, as Zhukov saw it, and it showed the strategic initiative had irrevocably shifted to the Soviets.
From there, Zhukov just continued to lead major offensives. The liberation of Kiev, November 43, the massive Operation Bagration in Belarusia in 44, that brought the Red Army right to the outskirts of Warsaw, didn't it? Just a relentless push westward.
Indeed. The Soviet economy's wartime transformation, fueled by that immense industrial output you mentioned, it allowed for these consecutive, large-scale strategic offensives across the entire front. A stark contrast to the earlier limitations, those desperate defensive struggles. Operation Bagration, for instance, was one of the largest, most successful Soviet operations ever, essentially destroyed Germany's Army Group Center. This period also saw a dramatic increase in the effectiveness of Soviet command, staff work, coordination with the growing partisan movements. Those partisans played a significant role, disrupting enemy logistics behind the lines. And Zhukov repeatedly emphasizes that the Soviet military leadership's profoundly scientific prevision of developments, their ability to anticipate enemy moves, contributed substantially to planning successful campaigns. They were truly learning and adapting at an incredible pace.
Now, turning to the autobiography itself, it's clear Zhukov faced significant challenges getting it published decades after the war. Censors apparently deleted many passages, including ones where maybe he inflated his own role a bit, or criticized figures like Kliment Voroshilov, even calling him weak in military affairs, apparently. Also, passages naming officers purged in the 30s, or making positive remarks about American Lend-Lease aid, or even General Eisenhower. He apparently called him Ike informally. This gives us a fascinating glimpse into the political climate he was still operating in, even years later.
It absolutely does. And the censorship, it's a crucial lens through which we have to read the memoir. It highlights the real sensitivities surrounding Soviet historical memory, even then. But despite these deletions, what undeniably shines through is Zhukov's unwavering belief in the Communist Party as the brain, the guiding force of the Red Army, also the profound national unity he witnessed, and the mass heroism of the Soviet people. He comes back to that again and again. He consistently asserts that the Soviet military leadership's profoundly scientific prevision of development, their foresight, their planning, and their rapid adaptation of military doctrine, that's what ultimately led to victory. For Zhukov, as he saw it, this whole brutal experience served as irrefutable proof of the superiority of the socialist system and Marxist-Leninist military science. It's a powerful statement about the core beliefs that drove not just him, but the entire Soviet war effort.
Okay, let's connect the dots here a bit. Zhukov's autobiography, it offers this truly unparalleled deep dive into the human side and the strategic dimensions of the Eastern Front. It's just a powerful narrative of resilience, adaptation, and the sheer, almost unimaginable scale of that conflict, the one that really shaped the 20th century.
Yeah, and what's especially compelling, I think, is how Zhukov's story underscores something fundamental. Even with immense challenges, even with those initial catastrophic setbacks, a combination of, well, singular political will, unprecedented industrial mobilization, and an evolving adaptive military doctrine, it can fundamentally turn the tide of history. His life is really a powerful testament to the idea that knowledge, especially that hard-won operational experience, when it's rigorously understood and applied, it becomes the most valuable asset you can have in any conflict.
So, what does this all mean for you, our listener? Well, Zhukov's relentless pursuit of self-education, right from that harsh apprenticeship, despite extreme hardship. It offers a pretty profound insight, doesn't it? In rapidly changing, often brutal environment, continuous practical learning isn't just an asset. It's often the only path to survival and to advancement. It certainly gave us some aha moments about leadership, about decision-making under just unimaginable pressure. If you're keen to explore more after this, maybe consider delving into other memoirs from the period, perhaps from the German perspective for a contrasting view. Or research the technological arms race of World War II. See how that innovation directly impacted what happened on the battlefield. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the incredible, complex story of Marshal Georgy Zhukov. We hope you feel a little more well-informed and perhaps even a little inspired by the life really dedicated to mastering the art of victory.